You can call me or text me. I'll be happy to answer questions. If you want to email me, there are lots of memos going around that I think have my email address on it. But if not, my email address is SD, so like my initials, Sam David, SD@drivermcafee.com. So it's driver, D-R-I-V-E-R, McAfee, M-C-A-F-E-E.com. All right? Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Patrick McCormack, County Attorney. How are you? Thank you for being here. This topic, I think, has generated enough interest where for this room, which is fairly large size, we're at capacity, and we probably have about another 50% outside. And so what we're going to do is, if everyone has a sheet, you might make some comments on, and if you're in here, you can certainly stay for the whole, the presentation. But if you would agree, maybe some of you, to participate in some time sharing, if you could, I think actually after Mr. Diebenow makes presentation, sort of maybe make a comment and then perhaps allow some room for some of your fellow citizens. Or if you feel that you can make your comment, the staff will collect all those, and those will be provided to the county officials, including ultimately the Board of County Commissioners. So again, we have a little bit of an unusual circumstance tonight. I think a high interest topic. Again, so if you are able to sort of make some comments, those will be taken in. In fact, ultimately, those might be more directly available to your elected officials in that they can, read through those at the point. So, thank you for understanding, and Mr. Diebenow, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
How are you going to handle comments?
How are we going to handle comment cards? What I thought I would do is, there's 5 subjects. What I thought I'd do is I'd give you a quick overview of why we're here, why I came up with these ideas. I'll tell you a little bit about each one, and then we can just go. We'll just take comments right after that. I guess, is there anyone, Patrick, that's collecting cards?
Yeah, Sherry.
Okay. So we'll just we'll let her come up, and we'll just start taking. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll let Jacob or one of the staff members call people that want to speak. All right. So I see a lot of familiar faces from my neighborhood. I see a lot of folks who I haven't seen in quite some time. It's nice to be with you. I appreciate you coming out. Why are we here? I live at 335 Pablo Road, and I moved there about 5 years ago. As a part of my home being built, my contractor built a rigid mailbox, a brick mailbox, on the curb. And unbeknownst to me and unbeknownst to my builder, that's not permitted in the overlay. Yes, sir? They can't hear me. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So again, my name is Steve. I live at 335 Pablo Road. I built a house. I had a rigid mailbox, a brick mailbox built on the curb. And I got cited for it. Unbeknownst to me, you're not allowed to have a brick mailbox right on the curb. And I'm a zoning lawyer. I work almost exclusively in Duval County. And one of my law partners, also my former law partners, also got cited for having a brick mailbox on the curb. His mailbox had been there for about 20 years. But there are 28 rigid mailboxes in Old Ponte Vedra near Christ Church that were out of conformance with the code. And so my partner asked me, hey Steve, listen, let's go change the code. This is ridiculous. That's silly. I've had my mailbox there for 20 years and now I'm getting this code violation. I don't want to have to move my mailbox. And I called code enforcement and I talked to the staff and we went through it. And what I figured out was that there's a rationale for that. The rationale is if you have a breakaway mailbox, like a mailbox on a wooden post, and a car hits it, it does some damage, but it's not going to stop the car. If you have a brick mailbox or one that's concrete or something more solid, a rigid mailbox, that can cause some more damage. And when I heard the reason for why the mailbox shouldn't be moved, I basically told my partner, look, I'm just gonna move my mailbox. There's a reason for the rule. We're gonna move it. It's gonna cost me some money, but we didn't do it right, and that's okay. And so I moved my mailbox. And if you go by my house, you'll see it's probably one of 28 rigid mailboxes that have been moved back off of the curb. And I didn't decide to pursue it. Now, the unfortunate thing is that out of the 28 people that were cited, several of them we have common friends with, they called me when other people started getting code violations. And I started getting calls about forts and trees. And I started getting calls about side fences and about setbacks and new construction and variances. And I basically said to everybody, look, is anybody familiar with the neighborhood Avondale on the west side? So about 6 years ago, has anyone been to the Mellow Mushroom in Avondale? Yeah. Okay, it's a nice restaurant, right? Pretty good, fits in well in the neighborhood. So that zoning, I lived about 2 blocks from that when we did that rezoning. And it was awful. I mean, it was a challenge. And the main concern was that people were afraid their homes were not going to be able to be sold once the Mellow Mushroom went in. And it took about 2 years, and we made a lot of concessions. It's in a historic district, but I think the end product, everybody, we had a meeting like this, everybody since then except one person, who still remains a friend of mine, has visited the Mellow Mushroom and said, you know what, it turned out great. People that were concerned about the housing prices, they were able to sell their homes if they wanted to leave. I know there's a lot of reasons because of the economy and everything else, but the end of the story was it turned out to be a pretty good project. I didn't want it to go through that again. I spoke with my friends, and I had so many friends that had these code violations that I finally started reading the code. And what you see in here on the memos is basically a list of my ideas after reading the code on things based on my experience that I thought would be things that could help avoid fights about code enforcement, about things that I thought I didn't understand or didn't make sense to me. And so I basically went around and I started talking to people about it. And I talked to Commissioner Blocker, for example. And Commissioner Blocker, this was a year ago, and he said, listen, I want you to go talk to everybody. And I went and I said, well, who's everybody? And he said, well, you need to go talk to this board and that board and this board. So I went and talked to the MSD, I went and talked to the PIVZAB, I went and talked to the Architectural Review Board. I talked to my neighbors. I talked to people that were developers. I talked to people that were not developers. And I asked them about a lot of these topics. This list wasn't, it was a little bit longer before. But the feedback I got was, other than the 3-story versus 2-story, which I did not appreciate the feelings about that. Other than 3-story versus 2-story, the rest of it was, I will say, really was kind of not too exciting. People were not too excited about it. So after I made those rounds, I went back to Jacob and I said, Jacob, I don't think this is going to be controversial. Obviously, I'm very good at predicting things. And I said, Jacob, I think that this is okay to move forward. And basically, so I petitioned my government, just like any of you might, to get a code changed. And so they put together a staff report. Like I said, it took about a year to get here. And what you see is the end result of about a year of talking to people. And then I started going back to those same boards, the MSD, the Architectural Review Board, the PIVZAB, with hopes of getting, some of these things changed. I don't represent GATE. I don't represent developers. I don't. Okay. Listen, I don't. And the last commercial developer that I represented in St. Johns County was the owner of the Winn-Dixie here. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
You're an attorney?
Yes.
And you're responsible, and you work with developers on zoning changes?
Mm-hmm.
Then you work for a developer.
Yeah, but
Then you're working with developers?
I have a client in this case. I have a client, it's a family. It's a local family. And
That's what this is about.
And the family is not a member of the GATE family, and they're not a developer. And they're not. And listen, you can be critical of me, you can judge me, you can say I'm biased or whatever, and that's fine. But I'm telling you that I do not represent GATE. In fact, right now, my firm is adverse to GATE on Heckscher Boulevard, the Payton family. I'm adverse to them on things right now. Yes, sir.
You do not represent them, or you haven't represented them?
I have represented GATE on one gas station in Brooklyn in downtown Jacksonville.
So you're not involved with this project down the street here?
Which project down the
You know
street?
what project we're talking about?
The gate station and the car wash that they're building out there? No, I'm not involved in that at all. I do not represent gate on that. I would like to be, but I'm not.
When you were doing these suggestions to the zoning board,
Mhm.
you didn't come across any of these things, giant car washes, 25-bed gas stations, things like that?
I'm not representing Gate. I have no idea what their plans are there. And what they're doing, what I understand, that the car wash and the gas station, I understand they can do those by right. And Jacob, I don't know, maybe you know more than I do, but I don't think they have to ask for permission to do a car wash. That's not why we're here. Let me just stay on the topic that we're talking about today. But listen, call me, talk to me, and maybe we'll, yes sir.
What vacant land is left in Ponte Vedra that would even allow us to build a 3-story apartment building with increased density?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the first topic then. About 3 stories versus 2 stories. To just finish my story. The reason I'm here is because I was looking at, and I watched several PIVSAB meetings while I was watching. I saw lots of code hearings. I talked to the code compliance guys. What you're seeing here are my ideas and a family that lives in the neighborhood. And so let's talk about the first one, 3 stories. I've been doing this for 25 years. I asked hundreds of people over the last year, why is there this limitation on 3 stories versus 2 stories? And I have not heard any rationale for it. So, for example, on the mailbox, the rigid mailbox, why isn't a rigid mailbox allowed on the curb? It's not allowed because of safety.
But it's about density.
Well, okay. How many folks?
Traffic.
How many folks have been to a meeting like this before? Okay. All right. Hold on. Well, we're not. Let me ask this. Okay. So in Florida, there's a comprehensive plan and there's zoning. There are 2 different. I'm seeing a few heads nod and a few look a little unusual. In Florida, every piece of property has a zoning district and a comprehensive plan designation. The comprehensive plan is like the Constitution. It basically says you can do multifamily here. It says you can do multifamily at 20 units per acre or 10 units per acre. It says you can do single-family residential at 50-foot lots. Or it says very broadly you can do industrial or heavy industrial. That's the comprehensive plan. I'm not talking about the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan sets density, maximum density for properties. What I'm talking about is the zoning code. The zoning code is like the statutes that implement the Constitution in the zoning world. So what changes I'm talking about have nothing to do with density. For example, a 3-story house versus a 2-story house is a house. It's not any more dense or any less dense the way that the comprehensive plan treats it. Same thing for if you put an apartment building on a 10-acre piece of property, whether it's 3 stories or 2 stories, you're limited by whatever the comprehensive plan says. I don't even know the densities in Ponte Vedra. 10 units per acre, 8 units per acre, whatever it is. We're not talking about what the maximum density is. So, yes, sir.
What do you expect to happen? What do you anticipate happening as a result of this change in the zoning?
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, what do I expect to happen as a part of this change in the zoning? Well, on the 3-story and 2-story,
Proposed change in the zone.
on the proposed change, yeah. Again, I'm aware of at least 2 families who've had code enforcement go into their house after it's been built and search around looking for a 3rd story. And to me, I don't understand why that would happen. That seems to be very much over the top. And so let's do this. That's the rationale for the first change.
Why not to do it? You talk to hundreds of people, no one told you reasons not to do it. You want reasons why not to do it? Why don't you ask for us?
Well, we're gonna do that. Do you wanna, we have 5 topics.
Okay.
Do you wanna, hold on, because there's also like cards. So let's do this. Do you want to stop now and talk about 3 stories versus 2 stories for a few minutes, or do you want me to finish the presentation?
Please finish.
Okay, so I'm going to finish my presentation. Well, the rationale to me on the third story is, it has nothing to do with density. And I don't understand what the reason is for not having a third story. And maybe you guys will explain it to me later, but that's the question.
So as long as it stays within the 35 feet?
There is no proposed change to 35 feet. And let me describe something else too. Well, hold on. So here's another distinction I want to make sure. If we can go back, Jacob, to the maps. And I passed out some maps as well. The changes that we're talking about that are proposed apply to the Ponte Vedra zoning district and the Ponte Vedra overlay district. Doesn't apply to Sawgrass, doesn't apply to Marsh Landing. Those are in planned developments. They have completely different rules. So all the things that we're talking about only applies within the colored areas of these two maps.
But it impacts everybody. And a lot of people there.
I understand.
That has to be taken into consideration.
Okay.
It's still wide.
So,
Why 3 stories? It impacts the community.
well, because I believe that the limit on the density of 35 feet is the appropriate, that's the appropriate measurement. And that's just what I haven't seen it this way in any other jurisdiction I've worked in. So again, you understand the position?
You're gonna change it into like looking like a bunch of row houses. That's what you're gonna do.
No, I mean, again, why don't we go on to the next topic, because
Story is a big topic.
okay, well then, let me just go on to the next topic. So there are, the proposal that I wrote is for homes or for businesses. And it's also, and it's for both. No, it's for both. Today, you have 3-story office buildings, you have 3-story buildings. Well, you have all the homes on the beach. All the homes on the beach are limited to 35 feet in height. That's not going to change.
Not with flat roofs.
Well, flat roofs are permitted in residential districts already. You can do a residential, yes, you can do a flat roof residential house. The flat roof only applies to commercial. And so let's talk about flat roofs for a second. That's another one that's on the list. Everybody knows the most recent flat roof commercial building that went in, right? PGA Tour headquarters. Looks pretty cool. What I wrote in here, the code right now says flat roofs are prohibited in commercial districts. And what happens is developers come in and they say, let's waive that code. What I have said in this proposal is flat roofs are discouraged, but the Architectural Review Board has to review them. The Architectural Review Board already reviews them already. So, I mean, if we're gonna sometimes allow them and sometimes not, having a strict prohibition against flat commercial roofs doesn't make any sense. And so this proposal doesn't say all flat roofs are permitted in commercial districts. What this says is flat roofs are discouraged and they're going to be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. That's what it says, which is practically what happens already. Residential homes can already have flat roofs. So again, I didn't view that as being controversial because that's how it works in the real world today.
Just say not prohibited, not allowed.
Well, it says not allowed already, and yet we have several. We have lots of flat roofs.
The PGA is on how many acres?
We can talk about specific reasons why and why not. I have no idea.
Well, it's big property, and it's set way, way back. It's not 10 feet from the road.
And
And
again,
these flat roof structures look like Kleenex boxes.
Or a rooftop bar.
I understand. You're not an architect, are you?
Right.
Or are you an architect?
I know that it's much cheaper to build a square box than it is something with some style.
Okay. The other one on, let's talk about roofs just one more, another one on roof materials. Right now, the code says you can't have reflective surfaces on roofs. And so my question to staff was, well, how would you do a solar panel if you wanted solar panels? And so, well, all I'm trying to do is explain what the rationale was for the way I wrote it. I'm not trying to make it so that every roof is made out of aluminum foil so it reflects into the neighbor's yards, or it goes up into the atmosphere, or makes the house hotter. All I did was ask, what's the rationale for having, not permitting reflective materials on a roof? And so there isn't an answer. So
My
rather,
understanding is you cannot prohibit solar panels no matter what, that's a federal law, right?
Okay.
So if solar panels are allowed federally, what's the need for us to go another step? Because they're already gonna be allowed in.
great point. If you're right, then you've educated me on something I didn't know about, or that anyone I've talked to in the last year hasn't educated me on, and then there's no need for that. But there wasn't some big agenda other than how do you allow solar panels if you're not allowed to have reflective items on the roof? Okay, well, that's okay. I appreciate
But I've
that.
also heard that the architectural board sometimes is overruled by the commissioners. So you can say it gets architectural zoning clearance, and the architectural board and the zoning board can both vote no. And then it goes to the commissioners and they overwrite it, which happened at the third.
So I think, so again, let me get through these last two, and then we'll I'm sure take questions for the rest of the balance of the time. The next one I changed again. These next couple are as a result of watching the talking to the code enforcement guys, and then watching the hearings. One is about attached structures. So there's been a lot on the internet about this allows new structures in side yards. That is not what this does. There is a provision that says that your home has to be set back a certain distance from your neighbor or from the front yard or the side yard. And the way they measure it is they measure it from the plane of the home. And there are some exceptions to that. So for example, if you have a 3-foot step or a couple of steps that adds up to 3 feet, you can encroach into your front yard and they don't count that against you. But if you have a bay window, or if you have a porch, or if you have something like a balcony, that counts against you and you cannot do it. And so I'm not saying, and again, what I've asked for in this proposal is that a balcony, a bay window, a veranda, steps, a porch, those can also extend within 3 feet of that yard, but only up to a maximum of 25% of the frontage of the home. Because right now, if you want to install a bay window because you want to do something and your home already is at the building setback line, you can't do it. And again, that to me, well, so what is, a lot of people go in and ask for variance to do that. And so rather than have this strict rule that prevents for a portion of the front of the home an encroachment that's no more than 3 feet, I just thought it was a reasonable request because of the amount of controversy that those situations cause. It's not allowing a new house, it's not allowing a structure or a little shed. All you're doing is allowing a 3-foot extension off the front of the house or to the side of the house for a portion for less than 25% of that frontage. So if your house is 100 feet wide, within 25 feet of it, you could do a bay window. Only 3 feet. Only for 3 feet away from the house. So again, it's an attached or an accessory structure. From where what I practice and what I do, that to me seems like it would take care of a lot of issues with people that want to add architectural features to their homes and not have to go fight for a variance over something that's such a small deviation. The last two. The last two are about fences. And one of them is regarding posts and columns and gates. Right now, fences, and again, it only applies to the folks in the map. So this isn't Sawgrass, this isn't Marsh Landing, this isn't Palm Valley Road, not Roscoe. It's only within those colored areas on the maps that a lot of you got handed out and that Jacob put up here. Right now, fences are 4 feet high. Great. Everywhere I go, that's a standard. There are a lot of gates and there are a lot of posts and there are a lot of fences that, not the entire fence itself, but where the openings are in those areas where they exceed 6 feet. And right now the code says you can only have 6 feet. in another part of the code, it says, for example, down, I think in parts of Sawgrass, I think south of Sawgrass, you can have your gate be 8 feet tall. And so when I walk around and I see 7, 8 foot tall fences and gates all over Old Ponte Vedra, or at least where I walk around, what that tells me is someone is going to start code enforcing against that issue. We already have a built environment. Let's just recognize the fact that an 8-foot gate doesn't offend anyone because there's so many that exist already today. That's what one of the changes was. The other one is about fences between homes. And this is another one that gets very controversial. And I only learned that after talking with people about it. But right now, between two homes, remember your fence maximum can only be 4 feet tall. What I wrote, which I didn't think would be very controversial, but maybe it is that between the homes themselves, that fence can be 6 feet tall. So just with it between the two structures. And I got this idea from a gentleman who served on the PIVZAB for many, many years. And this was one issue that he thought was something that people thought about all the time, and that between the two homes, rather than making it so that the entire fence in the side yard can go to 6 feet, or only the fence in the backyard can go to 6 feet, everyone wants to preserve views. Nobody wants to block the ability of a backyard or a front yard to see to the marsh or the golf course or wherever you might be. And so I wrote something that basically said between the homes, the fence can be 6 feet tall, and that fence can go no more than 10 feet past the smaller of the two homes. So it doesn't run all the way down the side yard. It basically just allows for an additional little bit of privacy between two homes, and the fence has to be located within 10 feet of the house. So if the homes are 30 feet apart, you can't do a 6-foot fence. But if the fence is within 10 feet of the homes, then you can go ahead and add that extra privacy. And again, that was an idea that I got from one of the board members on PIVZAB. I didn't think there was anything scary about it, but you guys have been very patient. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to answer questions, Jacob, but you may want to just start taking comments. If anyone doesn't get a question answered tonight and they want to call me or email me, I'm happy to answer those. You want me to answer questions a little bit, or you want to take comments?
So I've got
so I do have some public comment cards here. I wanted to do, before we get to public comment, I wanted to do a quick show of hands on these different items, because there's a lot of people here. Not everybody's going to have the opportunity to speak. And so I think it would just give us a good indication about how everybody feels. So I'm just going to go over at least these bullet points. And if I miss anything, Steve, please correct me. But so one of the proposed changes for residential is to allow for 3-story homes in lieu of the 2-story limitation, with no change in the 35-foot height limit. If you are
Isn't that residential and commercial, Jacob? It's not just residential, it's commercial also.
It is in the proposal.
It is. I have it separated. I have it separated into a residential section, into a commercial section. So just so we don't get too confused on that. But so.
And homes means apartment condos also, correct? The word, you keep using the word home.
We're talking
but that's
residential, single-family homes in this instance.
We're
talking about, just for reference, if we're going to talk about apartments, apartments are commercial buildings.
Thank you.
What are condos?
Essentially, it's going to fall into that same category.
Under what category? Residential?
Call it either way. I know where all these hands are going to go. So if you are for allowing 3-story homes in lieu of the 2-story limitation, please raise your hand.
If you're for
If you are for 3-story homes instead of the 2-story limitation currently in place, please raise your hand. All right, don't see a lot of hands there.
Can I request one thing?
Sure.
I would like Mr. Diebenower's home to be variance so he can build a 3-story home. Is everybody in favor of that? Just Mr. Diebenauer's house.
It's not
He
his
wants
house.
to.
All right, I'm going to continue on. If you are for allowing things like porches, balconies, bay windows, and similar items to extend 3 feet beyond the building restriction line, limited to only 25% of the linear frontage of the wall, please raise your hand.
Can we record the score too, so?
I'm got a good mental note, sir. If you are for 8 foot, where fences are currently restricted to 4 feet, would you like to allow for 8-foot gates, columns, lights, etc.? Please raise your hand. And likewise, where fences are currently restricted to 4 feet, would you like to allow 6 feet fences in between homes? I do see a few hands on that one. I probably have about around 10 hands. I see him poking up. So a little bit on that one. And then I'm going to move on to the commercial. Are you in favor of modifying the Ponte Vedra overlay regulations to allow for flat roofs subject to review by the Ponte Vedra Architectural Review Committee? Please raise your hand. Two or three hands on that one.
Let's do it all one way or another.
If you are in favor of allowing 3-story commercial buildings in lieu of the current 2-story limitation, maintaining the 35-foot height regulation, please raise your hand. And if you are in favor of removing overlay regulations relating to reflective roof materials, please raise your hand. See a few hands on that. All right, I do have, I've got some question and comments. I did promise Miss Mary Conkey that she could ask her question first, so I'm going to hand the mic to her, and then I've got a list. And if anybody wants to add to this list, we should have some more up front.
A million people are here. We're all here. What I wanted to say is very simple. 30 years ago, Ponte Vedra wanted to have some changes made. They wanted to incorporate. The state said no. Get enough of you. So they went down to Sawgrass. They said, will you join us? Sawgrass said, no, we're not going to pay any extra taxes. So that took care of that. Then 2 or 3 years later, they said, we will become our own county up here. So they put it to the vote. I don't know how many of you were here. They wanted to incorporate the whole area. Where everybody around here took one look at their pocketbooks and said, forget that. So Ponte Vedra was left with the same problem they had before. Only this time, they cleaned up their act and put in some pretty good regulations. On the overlay districts, we all got involved in that because it affects all of us. And what I'm trying to say, somebody's wondering why all these people are here. They aren't all from old Ponte Vedra. They're from all over the place. And the reason they're here is because it's our place. Amen. It doesn't belong to the developers. It doesn't belong to the commissioners. It doesn't belong to any of these people who are making decisions for you. I don't think it should even go down to the board to approve some of the decisions you make, because you're not too crazy up here, you know. So all I've got to say is I'm glad you're all here. I think that it's a good idea that you got to see that we are one family, and you chose to buy into it. A lot of people get married before they find out what that family was like. You bought a home. So I would like to suggest that you go back to the drawing board and go back to the zoning people and take the things you want and go do it for yourself and leave the rest of these poor people alone. Thank you.
All right, folks, so I got about 20 comment cards. I'm going to ask you to be as brief as possible. First, I got Mr. Wesley Moore. Mr. Wesley Moore. Got Casey Morris.
There's some people outside, come in.
We'll go until somebody... Casey?
So I actually have a couple of things to talk about. The first one, my husband wanted to say, he's in the back, he finally got in the room, is what about the drainage? What are you doing about drainage? So all the drainage that you've taken away from us in Ponte Vedra, all the building that you're doing, all the land that you're taking up, where's all the water going to go? What about the fact that it was a battery acid dump? Anyone care about that? Have you dug into the soil and found out what the soil's like? Those people that have lived in that community, they know what was there first. They know that it was a dump first. But we didn't build on the dump. The dump is in front of us. But you're building on it now. There's a couple more things I would like to discuss. In my sheet. Thank you. So, I'd like to know why the drainage is not on the list, period. Why isn't it on there at all? Why is it not a discussion? So that can be a part of it. The flat roofs, is that so that you can have the higher buildings? Yes, obviously. No, thank you. So that's so that you can build your tall fences in front of, behind our properties, directly behind our properties. So we're only allowed our 6-foot fences, and now you want to build a 10-foot fence. I don't think that's acceptable. We live in a neighborhood. It's a community. We have a community. It's actually a community. We like it. We like knowing our neighbors. We go to their houses and we have dinners with them. I don't want a 10-foot fence behind my house. And then a big 3-story building behind that.
Mr. Robert McVeigh.
Get him.
Thank you. I missed a little bit at the beginning. There was equally this amount of people that did not get in tonight. So, yeah, so I'm kind of speaking for them, speaking for everybody. I live in Dolphin Cove, number 8. There's a couple of, there's 2 storylines kind of unfolding here tonight. First and foremost, you know, Steve, I haven't met Steve. I have his LinkedIn bio here. He was John Payton's chief of staff for a couple of terms. If you look at his bio, I mean, he might not say he's working for Gate, but there's a lot of brave people in the room here. I mean, come on, like the writing is on the wall. We know what he does. We know who he's here for. It's the only development that's going on right now in the planning overlay district. So it's we can just kind of like beat around the bush and it just we know what we're all talking about here is that development that's going on behind the shops at Ponte Vedra. So a couple of the storylines are the thing with the 3 stories. You know, so if they put in high-density apartments, which is, they've proposed this in the past, they had renderings, I've seen 2 separate renderings already over the last couple of years. If you add a 3rd story, if you cram in 1 more story, now you got a 33% increase in the population in those buildings. You times that by $270,000 to $300,000 per unit, which is the going rate in Northeast Florida right now. That's millions and millions and millions of dollars in Gates' pockets by cramming 33% more capacity into those apartment complexes. That's 33% more increase in traffic out there on A1A. I mean, I had to bum a ride here from a neighbor because my family was in a car accident last month, totaled our car, somebody hit him from behind, and it's just, we do not need more traffic, we do not need more people, we do not need more infrastructure out there. The traffic is insane. More lanes of traffic does not solve the problem. It creates more problems. The other underlying story the other underlying story here tonight is the county commissioners. I don't know if any of them are here tonight, but there's 5 of them, and they continually override this volunteer planning district, planning committee that we have with Jane Rawlinson and the team that she has. Jane makes her recommendations with her committee, and these commissioners, none of whom live in Ponte Vedra Beach, that are making all of these critical decisions for us, that are in bed with Gate, in bed with all these developers, and they don't have to live with the ramifications of their decisions that are impacting our immediate lives. And it's time we call them out, we hold them accountable, we tell them that you should not be making these decisions for us. This is our town, our city, or, our Ponte Vedra, and it's infuriating that we basically have no representation in government up here. And, I would not be opposed to, forming our own little independent little town up here that we can't get bogged down.
Mr. Francis Workin? Or Mrs. Francis Workin? Cornelius Carroll?
Steve, I got a question for you, which is, do you remember me? So, the question that arises, and I know you said you got nothing to do with the remaining 26 acres by the gas station, but in 2017, you sat in the law office of Nelson Mullins with myself and David Brown, and you intervened on behalf of West Plan Fuqua LLC and PDC LLC, which is Gate, and you asked myself, my family owns the shops in Ponte Vedra, by the way, you asked us how much it would take for us to step aside from a lawsuit so that apartments could be built there. So just to clarify, you might not be involved with it now, you've been involved with it in the past. I checked the confidentiality agreement, by the way, that was ours, so we're fine, we're in the clear on that. Look, my family owns, manages, develops commercial property. They've been doing it for 40 years, I've been working for 15 years. I've seen this before. This is, there's some things, the fence doesn't really affect a commercial development, but the building height, that affects density. If I was a developer, and honestly, personally, I would financially benefit from this directly. But I don't think it's the right thing for Ponte Vedra. You don't need more apartments, I actually honestly thought, Steve, that you would go for affordable housing, need more affordable housing. I thought that'd be the tack that you'd go for, but you didn't. But we don't need really any more density here. We don't need more traffic.
We don't need overcrowded schools.
We don't need overcrowded schools. People are sending their kids, what is it, 8, 10, 12 miles away to school?
We couldn't approve a school, 5 years ago, but now we are.
This is a bad idea for Ponte Vedra. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know if you're the commissioner, go ahead, ma'am.
I said, because we didn't want the lights. We didn't approve a school because we don't want the lights. I live in that community. I am that community. I don't want the lights. I didn't approve it because I don't want the lights.
Where's it going to go there? It's a bad idea. And I know I was going to this. I'm not sure if there's any commissioners here. I can tell you right now, if you're a commissioner that approves this, I'll donate whatever I can legally to oppose your re-election. I'll say that.
Mr. Gary Phillips. Gary Phillips, would you like to speak?
Yes.
I thought I was going to be last, and stay one easier. My name is Gary Phillips, and I'm president of the Palm Valley Community Association. Our board voted unanimously. I'm sorry?
There you go.
You can't hear me? I didn't want to scare anybody, so I'm president of the Palm Valley Community Association, and our board voted unanimously to oppose anything that happens here in regards to what's happening with this particular situation. So we I'm not sure exactly why we're having this meeting tonight. We have clearly defined regulations in place and a process if an applicant is denied. And so when I hear a situation where we're going to come and have a conversation in a workshop, I think about negotiation. And I don't think there's too many people in here that want to negotiate tonight. I think we're here to show our strength, and I appreciate everybody coming to do exactly that. We want to move forward. We want to be positive. But I can assure you, 10 years from now, if this happens, you will not recognize Ponte Vedra.
Mr. Roger Elsas. Roger Elsas. Lennox Stewart.
Yes, thank you. I don't need a mic. Just addressing the first thing, which says this is a 2 versus 3 story. This does not impact density limits. What the hell do you mean by that?
Don't address me, sir.
You don't have to be a math major to figure that one out. And flat roofs, I'll tell you what. How many people have driven from here over Mickle Boulevard to 95? Anybody?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Look around. It's Kleenex box after Kleenex box after Kleenex box. They are ugly. We don't want
Mr. Greg Leonard.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I don't think I want to incite the passion, because there's certainly plenty of it in the room. I'm simply here to speak on behalf of something called the Ponte Vedra Beach Citizens Traffic Task Force that's been in existence since 2014, trying to collaborate, work effectively with the county and the Florida Department of Transportation to improve traffic flow through our community. I think everyone in this room knows that it's a struggle, often during the day. The Citizens Traffic Task Force is made up of members of the following community associations and HOAs. The Palm Valley Community Association, Gary Phillips just covered that part of it. The Ponte Vedra Community Association, the Ponte Vedra Beach Coalition, the Ponte Vedra Beach Municipal Service District, and the homeowners associations of Sawgrass, the Sawgrass Players Club, Marsh Landing, the Plantation at Ponte Vedra Beach, and Ponte Vedra Lake. And we attempt to communicate effectively through those board members to those communities, and as a result, we have access to around 85% of the residents of the community. And certainly, I'm not up here pretending I'm going to speak for all of those residents, but I will say that our board member unanimously feels that the regulations that are in place currently serve this community well. They've served the community well for a long time, and changes like the ones being proposed tonight are unnecessary and inappropriate. And certainly, it boils down to the density question. I mean, again, it is very difficult to change roadway design and development. We haven't had changes here since the 1980s, since JTB. And frankly, the last time there was any conversation about it, it was going to be around 6-laning A1A, and FDOT was run out of town basically because there was so much. It was a similar evening like this, I think, when that happened. So I just want you to know that the CTTF strongly objects and disapproves of any zoning regulation changes like those being proposed tonight. We believe the regulations we have are the regulations we need to work with. I do find it strange. Whatever neighborhood I plan to move into, I do my homework on what comes with that neighborhood. I mean, I live in Sawgrass right now. I moved from Roscoe Boulevard into Sawgrass, and there's all kinds of regulations, but you go with what you got. You don't try to change what you got just because you've got something you need to change. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jeff Waltz. Jeff Waltz.
Thank you. So again, just to hammer this a little bit more, hopefully Steve's listening. You know, when you talk about 3 stories, you don't have to be a math major, you don't have to have a PhD from MIT or Stanford to figure out when you have more space, you will have more people. And Steve, you said you were representing 2 families here, one family in Ponte Vedra. So again, you don't have to be Einstein. What's this section about commercial for the one family you're representing?
Again, I'm going to address that because I've...
Well, let me finish. Okay, so what this does affect, when your proposal includes commercial, it has a dramatic impact on population density in this community. And again, we all know what A1A is like any time of the day. The people in Dolphin Cove are especially affected by this proposal, and that would be commercial. You know, the other thing that hasn't been brought up in this meeting is our county commissioners override planning and zoning boards. There is also a proposed hotel at, you know, right by the Target Shopping Center in Ponte Vedra that will dramatically also adversely affect.
Jeff, it's already been approved.
By the commissioners.
They were 2 and 2 split, and they went out to lunch, came back, and it turned out to be 4-0 in favor. How did that happen?
Exactly. I think we do need new representation in terms of county commissioners. Even someone deaf could hear the response here. No one wants 3 stories.
Thank you.
Let's Steve talk.
The gentleman who spoke from the traffic task force, what is your name again? Greg? Leonard, okay, I'm sorry, I just missed your name. Thank you. Okay, I can find it. Thank you. No, the reason that the commercial was involved is because when I read the code, again, this isn't the first time I've done this. I've done this type of work for 25 years. I did my homework. I talked to a lot of people. Clearly, I didn't talk to enough, and I didn't get to the right people. But in the folks that I spoke with, and again, I went to the MSD, the PIVZAB, the Ponte Vedra Architectural Review Board before this was even drafted, and talked with them, gave them a presentation, got some feedback, made changes. I really didn't think that those changes would be, that these changes that I proposed would be as dramatically opposed as they were. And so, again, anyway, so that...
What do you intend to do?
Huh?
What do you intend to do? If you heard what you heard tonight, what do you intend to do?
Well,
will you track those right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back, I'm going to talk to my client, my friend, the family that I work with. I'm not going to dissuade you of that relationship. But look, my relationship with former Mayor Payton is well known. It's public. It's not something I run from or I hide from. I can tell you that I don't represent them in the matter that Mr. Cornelius talked about. I didn't represent Gate in that matter. I represented the people that were trying to buy that property from Gate.
Why isn't your family here tonight?
Well, because they probably heard from their neighbors and friends that this might be the reception, and they didn't want to be, the subject of an attack. So the question was why the connection to commercial. And I thought that I answered that. I made those changes because I went through the code, and I didn't think that those were. Look, somebody said it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out about density. If you have a 10-acre piece of property, whether it's 2 stories or 3 stories, the density is capped by the comprehensive plan. And just because the comprehensive plan says it's going to be 13 units or 20 units, that does not mean that the county commission or these boards have to approve the maximum that's permitted under the code. So, I'm just telling you how the law works. Again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying that if you have a 2-acre piece of property and the density is 10 units per acre, you get 20 units. Whether it's 2 stories or 3 stories, you get 20 units. And there are other limitations on density. There's side yard setbacks, there's parking, there's a whole other list of things that deal with how to control density on property. And that wasn't, again, the county has rules that determine how density is calculated. So for example, in Duval County, you get credit for all the acres. If you have 10 acres and 5 acres of it are wetlands, you get credit for all the acres. In other jurisdictions, and I don't even know what the rule is in St. Johns County, but in other jurisdictions, if you have 5 acres of wetlands, you don't get full credit of density for those 5 acres. Every county has a different comprehensive plan that governs how density is calculated. And so all I can say is, I underestimated the fervor of this issue. My intent was to try and clean up things to me that I've never seen in any other area I've practiced. Density is governed by the comprehensive plan, not by the zoning code. And I know there'll be skeptics, and that's okay. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. But my intention tonight was to share the information. You guys have been very, I appreciate it. I don't want to stop the conversation. Jacob, if you want to call the next person.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, man, we're trying to get through this list. Mark and Karen Nicholson?
You want to go?
Okay. I'll just talk from here. I want y'all to know that it's 24 acres there on that land. It's 24 acres on that land. It's not, I keep hearing 10 acres. 10 acres is 24. So I think he gave a quote about 10 to 8 houses or apartments on an acre. It's 24, so it's close to 300. And then we were promised buffers, no buffers. We were promised drainage, and they filled it in, like she said. So there's things happening that were promised. Oh, we can promise less apartments, but then, boom, it ends up 300. So just wanted to let you know about that.
Miss Nicole Crosby?
I just want to say a couple things. Regarding density, there's been a lot of denial of increased density, and I think the reason that this is happening is because there's like a legal definition of density, and then there's what all of us, understand density to be. So if the lawyers and the planners are saying density is X number of units per acre, then they're saying the density won't increase if another story goes up. But anybody who has a brain knows that there are going to be more people in another story. But they're using the word density in a different way than we are. So don't be fooled by the fact that they're using the word density in a different way than the average layperson uses it. There will be more people in the third story. How can there not be? I wanted to also mention that regarding this debate about Mr. Diebenow's association or non-association with Gate Petroleum, which many of these people in this room are very familiar with because we fought them hard for 3 years, spent thousands of dollars of our own money and many, many hundreds of hours of our time fighting Gate. So we still think about them a lot, and they're still out there. We're in their crosshairs. Ponte Vedra is in their crosshairs. And I would like to know, perhaps Mr. Diebenow could shed some light on this, because he and all 3 of his law partners are officers with the registered agent for the new outpost. Can you explain that? If you have nothing to do with Gate, because right now it looks like the new outpost is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Ponte Vedra Corporation.
Okay, so let me answer the first question about density first. Population, you don't want to know about that? I'm not going to. She had two. She made 2 points, and I was going to talk about both. So we have a company. My law firm has a company called Contega that manages corporate documents and corporate annual reports for probably thousands of companies. And so that company, Contega, which is owned by my law firm, they manage that particular company that owns that piece of property. They don't manage it in the sense of cutting the grass. They do the corporate documents They make sure that the annual reports are filed and that payments are made. And so, with the state of Florida. But that entity is not owned by Gate, and we don't represent Gate.
Right,
So,
Catega hides Gate. Catega hides Gate.
Catega doesn't hide Gate.
Of course it does.
Catega has
If you wanted
nothing.
to get to
Catega has
Gate
nothing. We have
knowing that
nothing.
they have
Catega,
that.
no. Catega doesn't hide Gate.
You will win on the law side of things, but we all know how it
Catega
works.
doesn't hide Gate. Again, Catega doesn't hide Gate.
When I chase property down and look for the owners and run into Catega, you are the shell
So,
of
no,
whoever
no, we're
these
not.
people are.
Catega is the company that manages the
That
LLCs.
hides
Go
the
look at,
owners.
when you go on Sunbiz,
Yeah, do it all
look
the
for
time.
the registered agent for, look and see what Catega is the registered agent for. And that'll give you an idea of what that company does. That'll give you an idea of what that company does.
Yes, it did. I mean, it's officially the wholly subsidiary of Ponte Vedra Corporation, but we don't really know who owns it at this point. And I don't want to dominate this, so I'm just going to quickly say one last thing. I'm very disappointed in the process. I mean, I'm happy to see a county planner here and a county attorney. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Is there any elected official other than myself? I happen to be chair of the Soil and Water Conservation District. Did any other elected officials show up tonight?
No. They're cowards.
I guess they don't consider it this important.
The zoning board is here.
Oh, the zoning board, I apologize. I didn't know that was
Not the zoning, you said elected official.
elected official.
I am an elected official
Oh.
of the airport authority.
Thank
Airport authority board.
All right, thank you. Anyway, I just want to wrap it up by saying I'm so disappointed that it's so hard for us to get a voice, to get some little teeny tiny change in our county, like getting horse poop off our beach. That's like almost impossible. But somebody can like come in and representing some anonymous family and get all these sweeping changes, or try to.
My name is Mark Nickerson. I'm president of the Dolphin Cove Community Association. Nickerson, N-I-C-K-E-R-S-O-N. My cell phone's 555-1221. Who likes spam phone calls? That sounds like a spam. Who likes spam emails? Who likes when their home team loses? Well, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, right? Who likes bad traffic? How about loud noises? Not talking about me. Loud traffic noises, air pollution. These are all things we can't do anything about once they happen. So the reason why we're here is because, at least I believe, this is a time and a place we can be where we can affect change. Am I right?
Yes.
We can share our opinions. I don't know about you guys, but I try to tell the truth. I don't speed. I respect others' opinions. I wore this mask not for me. I have got my vaccines. I wear it for other people. I have a feeling that we're here for our community, for those children that are little guys. I see them all the time in my neighborhood. Moms with strollers, and I guarantee you there's none of those moms here tonight because they're busy with all that parenting involves. So let's look out for them, the parents, the kids, the people who will buy our homes, the people who will spend more for our homes because of rules we have in place. And we do have excellent people at the county level. We just have to empower them, stand behind them, make sure they know what we want. And like Cornelia said earlier, let's think about who's representing us. Let's reach out to the communities in other parts of the county, Fruit Cove, World Golf Village, etc. Let them know, hey, your guy isn't doing right by St. Johns County. Everything affects everything else. Don't think in the now, think in the long term. Don't think of me, don't think of you, think of us. Thank you.
Mr. William Conley?
I just have a simple question. Who is the family that you're representing?
I'm not going to disclose who it is.
Does anyone know?
I do.
All right.
Steve knows.
Who's the family? Who is the family?
The writing is on the wall. I mean, just put it, we're all smart people in here, so. It's, all I see is the trucks in my backyard every day. It rhymes with hate.
Mr. Dave Oskipuck? Sorry, Dave. Oczzypok? Dave?
Dave's not here.
Dave's not here, man.
All right. Bill McGee?
Of a certain age.
Bill McGee? Amanda Graham? Amanda Graham? Blake Sherrod?
I don't have anything real important to say. I'm the negative guy of the group.
I think unfortunately we're all probably going to lose this battle because we're going up against $1 billion company. But I have faith. I have faith. Well, I was here to propose maybe just a couple of nice things, you know, like one thing that I battled when we met with Commissioner Jeremiah was, you know, this sidewalk that's dangerous for us to ride our bikes to the beach. That's going to create a larger community of people. So one of the big issues is there's a septic tank lid there that is completely broken up, and we had to beg to get the hedges trimmed, and I can't even ride my kid down the bike, so down the path without having to worry about other people. So, you know, you look at this company who hasn't paid tax and hasn't done all this stuff, and we're like, well, if you guys are going to jam it to us, like, can we get something for it, right? And so one of the things was, I mean, listen, I said I was a negative guy. I went ahead and warned you. We're going up against a guy who works for every developer, and unfortunately, I have, you know, I mean, I've seen this guy move and shake in this town. He gets whatever he wants to get done. They've got a pretty good possibility of doing this. So, you know, the things that we battle in our park is that we have this beautiful space that I think is underutilized, and we have this deal. My goal is to hopefully win this deal. I'm not against you guys. I work with developers, I do demolition and that whole sorts of things. I live in Dolphin Cove and will never move because it costs $2 million to move across the street. But
we're better anyway.
We're going up against the dude who owns this town. There's not a developer that does not touch this guy's pocket. Nothing against you, Steve. I've always hoped to meet you and do work with you. But you know, I'm here to fight with this whole team. I live in Dolphin Cove, not moving. Moved to St. Johns County in '05, so my kids that I didn't have yet would go to St. Johns County schools. I'm on the deal, but if we're going to get screwed, let's get something out of it.
Mic drop. Let's get through this and then we'll kind of talk about this. Miss Deborah Bear? Deborah Bear?
Hi, I'm Deborah Barr.
Barr?
I honestly didn't know I was doing that.
Oh, you?
Can't hear you. Fill out the sheet. Yeah, okay. Maybe we can hear you. I'll come up and use the microphone. Sorry.
You don't have to say anything.
When I filled out this form, I wasn't even aware I was signing up to talk. Just sign the form and give your opinion, that's it. Okay? Honestly, communication sucks here. If everybody knew about this meeting, I swear, this whole community. But we like to hide the truth, which is not okay. I moved to this area for my family, for my kids, to be in a nice, well community that, you know, respected each other and felt safe. And it wasn't Jack's Beach, because Jack's Beach we have high rises. I don't want to live in the city. I want to live in a nice, relaxed beach area like the country where I grew up. You know, so it's a shame that you guys don't put all of your information in the newspaper, on billboards. Hey, guess what? There's a meeting. Everybody would be here, but it's like you guys don't want anybody's opinion. And that's sad. With the gate taking over and it's not being transparent of what they really were doing, we got this little note in the mail saying, hey, we want to just add an extra, you know, car wash. Okay, fine, but that's not what it was for. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, we got this pass for the car wash, but really we had the intention to go sell the land or develop it ourselves without, you know, getting the right proper channels going through them. Instead, we're going to take the underhanded way, get what we want, and then disrupt everybody's lives. Honestly, that's what they're doing. They're disrupting everybody's life. They've knocked down all these trees and destroyed the environment. All these animals have been misplaced, and now they're still around, but unfortunately you'll see carcasses on the highway now, on A1A, because of it. And then you also have the noise pollution, which is unbelievable. At 7 a.m., you hear the freaking trucks beeping until right now. It's dark out, and you still hear the, you know, the trucks plowing down, mowing the trees, and, you know, dump trucks, and it's just horrible. So you just have this constant beeping noise all day long, and it disrupts our own animals. Our pets are miserable. The kids are miserable, and they're upset because they're like, wow, we can see trucks, we see all this destruction, and like, what's going on? And they don't understand. And honestly, as parents, we don't understand because we didn't agree to this. This was not our decision. Sorry, it wasn't. You know, I just really think if you guys were honest in the beginning, you wouldn't make up these little lists of, oh, well, this is what we're doing now, let's try to fight this. You didn't ask any of the community. You asked a few people on certain boards. Of course they're going to say, well, this is how you write it. Because that's their job. The job is to tell you how to write this and pass it. But it's not okay because you need to take the initiative and ask the community, the ones that you are railroading with your decisions. And that's not right. All right, thank you.
Kay Nichols? Kay Nichols? Connie Doyle? All right, so that's the end of my public speaker cards list. If somebody really hasn't said anything that, or would like to say something that hasn't been said, ma'am, please.
I just have one statement. We can talk to him, he has nothing to do with it. Everyone has to call their commissioner and tell them. I called everyone this morning, I told them I look forward to seeing them here, and no one showed up. So you call down there, and they'll give you their cell phone numbers, and you call and you tell them, because the commissioners all vote against us. They just voted to approve the hotel next to Target, all for them. So call your commissioners and get involved.
Of December, the Board of Zoning and Adjustments Board is meeting.
Yeah,
That's
so
the meeting that you have to go to tell them.
So, as the lady in the back is talking about, before this ends, because I think we're pretty much wrapped up, there is a flyer that's out here, and I'm just going to go over these dates. Now, Mr. Steve Diebenow might decide, based on today's meeting, that moving forward with this might not be his decision. But currently, this agenda item, for all these items that we've discussed, is on the agenda for December 6th, which is Monday, December 6th, 3 p.m. at the Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board. And
where?
That is at the county auditorium, the county administration building, which the address is 4040 Lewis, I'm sorry, 500 San Sebastian, sorry, 500 San Sebastian. It's in St. Augustine. Again, if that is the case and this goes forward, that will be advertised. If it does not, what you'll end up seeing is that that meeting is canceled because it was the only agenda item on for that meeting.
By when?
It's going to be relatively soon. I don't have that date, but we'll, after discussing with Mr. Diebenow, we'll probably find out here in a few days.
If it's the only agenda item, why don't they meet up here where the people are?
Yeah, what I was going to ask Jacob here in front of you all, what would be the easiest way for any member of our community here and any member of our community that's not here to kind of check the status of this? Is there a place they can go on the county website and look and then, you know, hit a title and see what the status is? Can you explain that?
Absolutely, thank you, Patrick. So there's going to be two places, and so what the typical place to find this information is on the county website, which is sjcfl.us. There's a calendar, and specifically there's a growth management calendar. Literally, you go onto the webpage, there's a button to click on for calendars, and then there's one for growth management. It'll take you to a list of all the public meetings and so forth that are going on. And so, again, 12/6, so on the 12/6 date, there will basically be an agenda posted showing this item, or it will show the meeting being canceled, and that will give you a very good indication of what's going on. What I'll also make sure to do is go ahead and just get that information on the front page of the county website, so there won't be any digging. All you have to do is scroll down a little bit, and we'll notify whether the Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board meeting is canceled or on with this agenda item. With that being said, I see a few hands, sir.
Yeah, question, if he does decide to go ahead with this because he's a lawyer, can we request that the family show up? That would be the best way to figure out whether it's gate or not.
Well, sir, I mean, as far as this is, you know, it's Mr. Diebenow's item, so you can request it all you want. I can't say that that's going to make anything happen.
Just have one thing to say. Someone said in 10 years you won't recognize this place. I've been coming here since the early 70s. I live here now, but coming here since the early 70s. And when I was here then, A1A was the same size it is now, but the right lane going both directions was always green. You didn't even have to stop at any stoplight. And so I'm not opposed to growth. I live here now, I love it. But I'm telling you, I've lived all over this country, and this is the greatest place on earth. And if it changes, it's not gonna be the greatest change if we allow, I mean, people can be like me, they can come in from somewhere else and find a place to live. You do not have to change things to find a place to live. So I'm just saying, it's the greatest place on earth. Do not screw this up. Just don't.
Hello, I'm Colonel William Locknane. I'm retired here. What is my grade rank? I'm the same grade rank as aircraft carrier commander. I've been all over the world. Why did I come here? It's a beautiful place. I just moved here 3 years ago. And then I heard about this going on, and I told my wife, I said, first of all, she said, don't you dare speak a word. You're I'm willing to help where I can. So what I've done in the background, I was a contracting officer. I deal with a lot of contracts, and I deal with some things. You can't ask this guy for the name of the people. That's client privilege. But you can get together. Look what happened in Virginia. Look what happened. Come on, guys. Get yourself together. So, what I'm saying is, you're on a precipice of holding up your integrity. Stand by it. Don't give it up. Fight. And here I am, just a recent resident. I'll join you. Thank you.
Guys, you know, we did public comment, so we're trying to get to the end of it. I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but we did all that. Give me a second here. So we just talked about Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board, right, December 6th. If this continues to go forward, it is tentatively on the agenda for the Board of County Commissioners for 1/18, that's January 18th. Again, that's subject to change, folks. But I do have a Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board agency member here, Ms. Jane Rawlinson. She has asked to speak, and I wanted to give her the opportunity.
Thank you, Jacob. Hi, I'm Jane Rowlandson. I'm on the Ponte Vedra Zoning and Adjustment Board. And I just want to make it very clear what our role is for Ponte Vedra. We don't decide these matters. We are advisors to the Board of County Commissioners when it comes to these kinds of changes. But we try to represent you as citizens in these changes, right? So if we hear this December 6th, we're going to vote on it. And by the way, when it did come before us at the last meeting, we were asked for a vote, and one of our board members asked to table it and asked for this workshop and said, we are not the kind of community that votes on these changes until we hear from our citizens. So we actually asked for this meeting. So we're glad that you all came out. Thank you very much. So regardless of how we vote in December, this will go to the Board of County Commissioners unless the person who submitted it, Mr. Diebenow, decides to retract it. So we will advise, and then the Board of County Commissioners will decide. So I just wanted to let you know what our role was. And again, I appreciate you coming out tonight. Thanks, Jim.
We're going to do, I see a few more hands. I don't want to cut anybody off, so.
My only request was that the upcoming meeting that you have scheduled, that at that meeting, we asked county staff to have on hand all approved projects to include the PGA Tour, bubble plans, and all those sorts of things, so that when you sit and try and make a decision, and we're talking about density, we're not talking in the moment, we're talking about all these already approved plans, and I would request that your group have that information available. Jacob can get it for you, and that be discussed at the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, it's in our regulations, we must have our meetings in St. Augustine, by the way. So we are not permitted to have them up here in Ponte Vedra. Someone made that recommendation. And we had, by the way, the board asked about that, and we are not permitted to meet here.
Why? I have a question. More room there anyway. Just out of curiosity, this particular meeting wasn't on the website or anything. We just kind of found out about it. So these kinds of meetings, community meetings, where are they posted?
So, ma'am, so you know, there are state statutes for advertising and whatnot. So basically, we did an NBR. We had the MSD forward that information out to their mailing list.
Sorry. Probably not everybody here knows what this is.
So the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, it's an email notification system that goes out to community leaders, community groups, HOAs, similar to the MSD. We did have the MSD reach out. It is on our website. It unfortunately didn't get posted until late. We did have that posted up there. It was advertised in the newspaper. It was advertised at public hearing. I have a gentleman here who's got one question, and then we're going to wrap this up, folks, because I think everybody's got great information and there was really good feedback.
So look, I have no question really. I'm from Julington Creek. I heard about this meeting from a friend. And maybe all of you heard about this meeting from friends or through Facebook or social media. I can tell you that I follow development projects countywide. And I've gone online. We've all been, it's been suggested we go online and see if there will be this on the agenda. I can tell you that agendas do not appear until 3 days before the meeting. It's very, very, very frustrating. I try to read and inform myself so that I show up at PZA and county commissioner meetings informed. It is hard to do with 3 days preparation. So I just suggest to all of you, stay in touch with your friends, the social media, however you found out about this meeting. People will ask. People will ask, and you'll get the information through the inside. The county has all of the standards that have been mentioned, so that they can say they do not have a failure to inform. but I can tell you they have a serious failure to involve.
So I'm going to wrap this up.
I have one question. Just one fast
Please.
question that you said when the meeting before the meeting even started, that we still have about 7 days to voice our opposition.
You can voice your opposition up
For-
until the
for the
time of the
hotel.
meeting. Oh, the hotel has been approved.
But you said it was approved, but we still have 30 days, and it was approved October 17th.
When I spoke to that, I was thinking of the appeal process to certain things, but that has been approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Patrick McCormick here might be able to discuss any potential options, if any, that citizens would have to try to reject that. I don't have that information like I went back on earlier.
Do you, sir?
Right, so any particular zoning application, PUD, that type of approval normally does have an appeal period. It's normally 30 days from the rendition of the order. That usually happens within 2 or 3 or 4 days after the actual hearing it was at. That does not necessarily mean anybody can appeal it. Somebody would have to have what's called standing, that type of thing. Standing. What that means is they are generally, shorthand means that they are affected more than the general public. It might be an adjoining property owner, somebody, you know, in the immediate vicinity, that type of thing. So I would like to say for everyone here, and I know that we've had some more people in this room, and for some of you that had to stay outside at the beginning of the meeting, I thank you especially. When I had come in here earlier, I had seen Mr. Carl Blessing, who had been on the zoning board, Ponte Vedra zoning board years ago. I think he's like an 85-year-old Marine, and I saw that we had I think was it an Army colonel or Air Force colonel up here a moment ago. And I think there's probably some other veterans. I know Veterans Day is coming up. I wanted to mention that for the purpose of, this is democracy, and there's some people not real happy about even having to be here tonight, or being here tonight, and sort of a particular item approval here and there. But I think that the veterans would know. I mean, there are some places around the world, where this type of democracy, and this is the way democracy works, not everybody has that. So I'm glad that we do have that here. I just thought I'd mention that. So I guess, Jacob, any
Thanks, everybody. I don't know, Steve, did you have any closing remarks? Thank you, everybody. It was a great meeting. Your voice is well registered by your lock of hands. And have a good evening.
I appreciate you saying no matter what you say. I mean, all people
no matter how fully advertised it was, I was definitely No, and we're very overlooked, very understaffed, so it's
and like, I'm on a corner lot in Milton Cove, and right away they're like, it's gonna be 25 feet on one side, 20 feet on the other, where then
I can give her a good really give her a 5 feet.
well, I'll be honest, I'm gonna be embarrassed because I went ahead of my garage a little bit, and it's like, when I hear that, and then I see these other things like you're saying, right on the property line. It's so frustrating. And then they told me to ask for a variance on them, to to post it in the paper, to have it mailed to everybody. I didn't see things mailed about like, you know what I mean? And they said, I was eating at my house for that hotel.